Chapter 257 of Shrimadbhagavatam, A Vision of the Future. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. There was once a total eclipse of the sun. Tradition had it that during the eclipse people should go to a holy spot and bathe in the waters before and after the eclipse. The great Parashurama, the Bhargava, had performed the tarpana for his parents with the blood of the Kshatriyas. The spot was where 5 lakes had been filled with the blood, and this place had been sanctified by the gods, and it was called Samanta Panchaka. All the kings of Bharatavarsha journeyed towards Samanta Panchaka when they heard that there was to be an eclipse of the sun. Aniruddha and Kritavarma were asked to remain in Dwaraka guarding the city, and the rest of the Yadavas left for the holy place. The journey proved to be a pleasure trip for all of them, and the women and children joined in the group, and so there was a great crowd traveling towards Samanta. And to the same holy waters had come the other kings from other countries: Matsya, Kosala, Vidarbha, Kekeya, and Kamboja. The Kauravas were also there surrounding Duryodhana. All his friends and all his kinsmen had come with him. To the great delight of Krishna, Nandagopa had come with Yashoda, and the Gopas were there with Gopis. Kunti was there, and she greeted her brother Vasudeva as though she had a grievance against him. She said, "You are my eldest brother. I consider myself singularly unfortunate that you should have been so indifferent about me and my misfortunes. It is the rule of life that one whom the gods do not favor is not treated with the affection and respect due to them by others, even their near kinsmen, brothers, cousins, and even sons." Vasudeva was sorely hurt by this unjust accusation, and he said, "Look, my dear sister, please do not blame us who have been but puppets in the hands of the fates. The world and its welfare are in the hands of the Lord, and man is helpless. The Lord spurs man into action, and he stops his Leela when he pleases. You were given to Kunti Boja when you were very young, and you have been living in comfort when we Bojas and Andakas and the Yadavas were running all over the world to escape the tyranny of Kamsa. As for me, I spent most of my youth in the cell, the prison house which Kamsa placed at our disposal. I could not even have the thrill of holding my sons in my arms. You were spared at least that torture." With these words, Vasudeva sat silent for a while and walked away from there, leaving Kunti to regret her hasty words, which she had spoken on impulse. The entire Kshatriya clan was there assembled on the holy spot by the name Samanta Panchaka. The field Kurukshetra was there on the banks of the lake Vaishampayana. They were all there: Bhishma, Drona, and the blind king and his wife Gandhari with their sons and their friends, Kunti with her sons and their wives, Vidura, Kripa, the kings Kunti Boja, Virata, Bhishmaka, Nagnajit, Purijit, Drupada, Shalya, Drishtaketu, the king of Kashi, the lords of the countries Madra, Kekeya, and Mithila, Yudhamanyu and Shusharma. They were all there. Krishna looked at all of them, at their powerful forms and their arrogant laughter, at their wealth and their pride. It seemed to him as though they had all assembled there to see the ground, to inspect it and see if it was good enough to be their final bed in a few years' time. Krishna, and only Krishna, with the exception of the rishis, knew what was to happen to all of them when Kurukshetra war was to be fought. That was the purpose for which he was born. He knew it. He was born to kill all of them and establish Dharma once again, to plant the seed of Dharma on this same holy spot which seemed to be fated for blood baths every time. Parashurama once filled up the 5 lakes with the blood of Kshatriyas, and as for Krishna, the entire field of Kurukshetra would be soaked with the blood of Kshatriyas, and on that red soil would be planted the seed of Dharma by him. Krishna sat silent for a long time, and his mind's eye saw all the events that were to happen, and it made him sad. Stitaprajna that he was beyond the effect of the opposites, and yet even he was unhappy at the thought of the task ahead of him. Painful indeed it was to contemplate without emotion this celebration and later the river of blood which was to flow here. He roused himself out of his reverie before anyone else could notice him. But Balarama had been watching him all the while. He came near and said, "Come, Krishna, shake yourself out of this despondency into which you seem to have fallen. I can guess what you are thinking about, but it is not going to help. This sadness. Whatever has to happen will happen. It is destined. The future you are dreading. It is unfortunate that you and I are able to look into the future. Ignorance would have been much more welcome than this power. Forget it, brother, and come with me. Look who has come to talk to us." Krishna smiled sadly and took his brother's hand, which had been held out to him, and stood up. In the near distance they saw Nandagopa. The brothers ran to him and they fell at his feet and those of Yashoda who stood by his side. They shed tears of joy when their parents embraced them. Devaki went near Yashoda and said, "My dear sister, I just bore these sons. They have been your sons and they will always be only your sons. How can I forget the favor you did us by taking these sons of mine in your care? You guarded them like the eyelids guard the eyes. Though you knew that you were courting the displeasure of Kamsa, you did not hesitate even for a moment. How can I thank you?" Yashoda said, "You thank me? It is strange that you should talk like this. We are the ones to thank you, not just me and my Lord, but the entire Brindavan. Can we ever forget the glorious years when I had these 2 boys all for myself? Can I forget the happiness which was all mine, the happiness of being known as Krishna's mother? It is the thoughts of those days which are keeping us alive, or else who can live after being parted from Balarama and Krishna?" Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamast. Chapter 258 of Shrimadbhagavatam, An Echo from the Past. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Krishna looked beyond the shoulder of his mother. At some distance were assembled the gopis. Their eyes, which had been starved so long for a look at his face, were now feasting themselves. There was surprise in their eyes since they saw that he was now a man and not the young Krishna whom they had known. The Krishna who used to tease them on the banks of the Yamuna, who was owned to hide their water pots and would give them back to them only after they had given him what he asked for, who had danced with them all through the night on the white sands of the river bank, on that moonlit night when all the world held its breath watching the rasa. The Krishna who had stolen their garments when they were bathing on that cold morning in the month of Margashirsha. Even now, their faces would be suffused with red when they thought of the many things which had happened when Krishna was in Vrindavan. And now, after all these years, Krishna was there and they could see him. They were feeling nervous. So many kings and their queens were there. They were so different from the gopis, and this made them worried lest someone should point out to them and say, "Look at those women They are the gopis, and it has been said that Krishna was a great favorite with them. And then laugh as though it was very amusing. Krishna was theirs, and he seemed so distant, so far away from them. Krishna looked at them, and he knew what was passing in their innocent minds. He went to the spot where they were grouped and smiled his old charming smile. They were drinking with their eyes. So beautiful was he to look at. He walked past them and they followed. When he was alone with them, he embraced each one of them and made them happy. They forgot all their anger against him and all their grievances. They were all happy that their Krishna was the same Krishna they had known. The wealth and royalty and city life which had all been imposed on him had not changed him a bit. They stood with him smiling and weeping with joy, and Krishna spoke to them with love. A great deal of love, and his voice was full of tenderness when he spoke. He said, "My dear companions, my beloved friends of the long ago, how far away it seems since I last saw you. You must have been thinking of me as a man who spoke lies. You must have been saying, Krishna is ungrateful. He has forgotten all the love we gave him. You must have said, Krishna told us a lie when he told us that he would come back. He has deceived us." He smiled at them when they looked down, ashamed that he had guessed all that they had been thinking. Krishna continued, "I know all that you would have felt, and I do not blame you. But then I could not help it, my friends. I was caught up in a snarl of intrigue and deceit, and I had to play a different role from the carefree cowherd's life which I enjoyed so much. Then I had nothing to worry my mind except the trysts I had to have with you and how to arrange them. Now I have been made to bear the burden of the kinsmen who are dependent on me for their well-being. Believe me, you do not know how often I have thought of the days I spent in Vrindavan, and often I have wished that I could go back to those days and to you all. But it is all in the past." Krishna was silent for a while. His face lost its teasing look, and the smile vanished from his face and even from his eyes. He shook himself. Krishna brought himself back to his old frame of mind and said, "Friends, on one thing is certain. Good joins people, makes them meet and spend some time together. And when they become involved with each other emotionally, it is the same God joins people, makes them meet and spend some time together. And when they become involved with each other emotionally, it is the same God who separates them, parts them forever. The wind that blows scatters the clouds in all the four directions, and it assembles them too. Pieces of straw fly together in the wind, and then their courses are entirely different. A wisp of cotton or a particle of dust, it is no matter what it is. For a while, they are all brought together, and later they are scattered. Even so, I was made to spend some time with you, and now I have been taken away from you. One thing, however, cannot be taken away from you or from me, and that is the love I have for you and the bhakti you have for me. You must never have the thought that I am away from you. I am you, and let this thought rid you of your unhappiness at being parted from me. I am you, and let this thought rid you of your unhappiness at being parted from me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamastu. 1 Chapter 259 of Shrimadbhagavatam, The Homage of the Rishis. Chapter 259. The Homage of the Rishis. 1 Chapter 260 of Shrimadbhagavatam, The Homage of the Rishis. 1 Chapter 261 of Shrimadbhagavatam, The Homage of the Rishis. 1 Chapter 262 of Shrimadbhagavatam, The Homage of the Rishis. 1 Chapter 263 of Shrimadbhagavatam, The Homage of the Rishis. 1 Chapter 264 of Shrimadbhagavatam, The Homage of the Rishis. 1 Chapter 265 of Shrimadbhagavatam, The Homage of the Rishis. 1 Chapter 266 of Shrimadbhagavatam, The Homage of the Rishis. 1 Chapter 267 of Shrimadbhagavatam, The Homage of the Rishis. 1 Chapter 268 of Shrimadbhagavatam, The Homage of the Rishis. 1 Chapter 269 of Shrimadbhagavatam, The Homage of the homage of the rishis. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The rishis had come there to Samanta Panchaka since they wanted to spend some time with Rama and Krishna. The entire galaxy of the heavenly rishis were present there. Vyasa, Narada, Chayyavana, Asita, Devala, Vishwamitra, Sandhananda, Bharadwaja, Gautama, Parushurama with his disciples, Vashishta, Galava, Bhrigu, Pulastya, Kashyapa, Atri, Markandeya, Brahaspati, Angirasa, Agastya, Yagnavalkya, Vamadeva, and many others. All the kings stood up as one man. This rare honor was indeed a God sent to them. Krishna and Balarama rose up from where they were sitting, and with great excitement they honored the rishis along with the other kings. When the Arghya and the Achamanya and Padya and other forms of worshipping the honored guests were offered and accepted, the rishis were seated in that sabha which glowed like Satyaloka, with purity and with the Brahma Jnanis. Assemblies of kings were so poor and so insignificant in comparison with this congregation of rishis, each of whom had accumulated tapas enough to destroy the entire world or to create a new world. These great men had come to pay their homage to Rama and Krishna. The young men of the Yadava house, who had been born and who were living as ordinary human beings, these avatars of Narayana. Krishna said, "There is no doubt that we have achieved the greatest punya in our lives, since we have been blessed by the sight of so many great men all at the same time. And we are blessed in the fact that we have been, at a single stroke, cleansed of all our sins." The elders have taught us several methods of washing away one's sins. Bathing in the rivers, which are holy, is one method. Another is worshipping the Lord by invoking Him and making Him reside in an image made of stone. How can these compare with the punya obtained by the sight of men like you? We can touch you and we can converse with you. We can take the dust of your feet, and the water with which we wash your feet, when sprinkled on our heads, will cure us of the disease of birth and death. This does not mean that tirthas do not purify, that worshipping the Lord in the form of an image does not purify. They do, but it takes a long time. Sadhus, however, purify us the moment their eyes light on us. The fire does not purify by sight alone. The sun does not. The moon and the stars which crowd the heavens do not purify by just the sight of them. The earth and the other four elements do not do it. Even the worship of the word as the Brahman does not purify immediately. All these do purify in the sense that when they are worshipped, they rid the devotees of his sins. But the cause of the sins, which is ajnana, ignorance of the truth, that is not removed by these objects of worship. But the great wise ones remove one's sins as well as one's ignorance at the same instant, and they do not need a long period of worship to grant us this. Their eyes, when they rest on us with kindness, perform this miracle. Man who suffers from the sense of I, in spite of his knowing that this body is made up of just so much water, some bones and a large area of skin, a quantity of fat and blood. Man who suffers from the disease, mine, about his wife and children is taught the simple lesson that by visiting the tirthas and by worshipping the little figures made of earth and stone, he will win the grace of the Lord. The really wise man is one who worships sadhus like you and gains salvation immediately. The rishis could not follow what he meant when Krishna spoke these words of praise. He was the Parabrahman and he spoke words which praised them. They tried to find the reason why he did it. This was the charming quality of their greatness which Krishna loved. They were humble. They did not know could not grasp how much they meant to Krishna. They smiled to themselves when the truth was the opposite as far as they were concerned. They came to see him so that a sight of him would cure them of the many bondages of the world, and he spoke as though he were an ordinary mortal. The rishis worshipped him with their minds and with their thoughts, and Krishna accepted their worship and their homage with his eyes and his mind. They knew him for what he was, but then they could not speak about it. Krishna knew it, and he smiled at them as if to say, I thank you for helping me keep up this appearance. I am just Krishna the Yadava, and Rama is my elder brother. That is all they know and all they need to know about us. The rishis said with their minds, Your actions, my lord, are ever beyond the comprehension of mortal man. The same earth is used to fashion different shaped pots, and each pot assumes an entity of its own, but they are all the same earth. Even so, you have yourself assumed different shapes and forms to create, to protect, and to destroy this universe. Untouched as you are by the bondages you impose on yourself in these different forms, people get deluded that you are an ordinary mortal and that you will go through the same pain and pleasure cycles as they do. You have been born again and again, and the purpose of your birth every time is to re-establish Dharma, which threatens to get eclipsed often. You are the Parabrahman, and we worship you in that form. Your blessed feet, which have granted to Ganga her purity, have been in our minds for long, and it is to touch them with our eyes and worship them silently that we have come here. Please accept our homage. They took leave of everyone there and made as if to go their ways. Vasudeva followed them and stopping them said, Please accept my worship. I have a favor to ask of you. Please teach me the path to be followed, the path which will rid me of sinfulness. Narada was amused by his words. He spoke in an undertone to his companions and said, What a foolish man he is! But he is ignorant. He has the Lord of Lords as his son, as his constant companion, and yet, thinking of Krishna as his child, he is ignorant of his good fortune, and he comes to us to tell him how to rid himself of sinfulness. It is indeed true that constant association with anyone breeds indifference towards that person, and it has happened to Vasudeva. When Krishna was born, Narayana revealed himself to this man in his own form, and yet, now because of having him with him all the time, Vasudeva has forgotten his rare privilege and behaves like other common men. A man living forever on the banks of the Ganga does often go in search of a tirtha to purify himself. Even so, Vasudeva, with Krishna by his side, wants to know ways of worship which will cure him of his sinfulness. Strange are the ways of the Lord. The rishis said, The worship of Lord Narayana is the path you should follow. This is the easiest, the best, and the quickest way to find salvation. A king should at some time in his life perform yagas and do acts of charity, and he will find salvation easily. Vasudeva requested them to oblige him by officiating at a yajna which he wanted to perform there in the holy spot Samanta Panchaka. They agreed to do so, and soon the preparations were made for the performance of the yaga. The wise man, the rishis, had said, should perform the yagas, by doing which he will be rid of his love of wealth, love of wife, and love of children, and other worldly desires. He should not have a desire even for the achievement of Swarga, the pleasures of the heavenly life. This was detrimental to the realization of the Atman. Kings of old were, for this reason, abandoning their kingdoms and their wealth and all their many attachments in order to attain salvation. A Dvija, who is a Brahmin or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya, has three duties to be done: duties to the god, to rishis, and to the pitras. These three are in order: yaga, adhyayana, and fathering sons. In so doing, they clear their debts to the three. Vasudeva, they said, had only one debt to clear, that for the gods, which could be done by the yaga. The yaga was performed and the rishis acted as the ritviks to him because they could spend more time with Krishna. Vasudeva was very happy that they had come to Samanta Panchaka, since it led to so many great events: the meeting of all his friends who ruled the other countries, the reunion with Nanda Gopa, and the meeting of the rishis who helped him to perform the yajna. He felt happy and very contented. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamast. Chapter 260 of Shrimadbhagavatam. Devaki's Desire. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Once Devaki called Balarama and Krishna to her side and said, "The rishis tell me that you are the incarnations of Narayana. I believe it because they told me so. To me, however, you are my sons, and I am happy in the thought that I am your mother. I know that years back, when your Guru wanted his dead son brought back to life as a Guru Dakshina, you both performed the seemingly impossible task of entering the city of Yama and getting him back. I have long felt sad at the thought of the sons whom I bore before you both were born, sons whom Kamsa killed. I wonder if it will be possible for me to see those sons of mine with your help." Rama and Krishna entered the world Suthala with the help of their yoga. Bali was the Lord there, and he welcomed them with great joy. He honored them since he knew who they were, and he praised them with words which only the really wise could speak. Krishna accepted the worship of this favorite bhakta of his and said, "We have come to ask a favor of you. During the great Swayambhu Manvantara, Marichi and Urna had 6 sons. Once, Brahma tried to make love to his own daughter Saraswati. The 6 brothers, seeing this, laughed at him. Because of this, they were cursed to be born as Asuras. They were born as the sons of Hiranyakashipu. They were later born as the sons of Devaki, and as soon as they were born, were killed by Kamsa. They are now with you. My mother Devaki is spinning for her dead sons and wants to see them. I will take them from here. They will then be free from the curse which had dogged them so long, and they will be able to reach the heavens." Balarama and Krishna took the 6 sons of Devaki with them. They were named Smara, Udgitha, Parishwanga, Pathanga, Shudrabhrit, and Grini. They reached Dwaraka, and the brothers led the 6 to the presence of Devaki. She was overcome with joy at seeing the sons who were dead. She placed them on her lap and bathed them with her tears. They were now free of their curse, and after prostrating before Vasudeva and Devaki, they ascended to the heavens. The ache and longing which Devaki had been having all these years now left her, and she did not mourn the fact that her sons were restored to her only to vanish soon. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamast.